Hi there. Welcome to our behind the scenes stream where I show you how I come up with product management content. For context, I've written more than 250 publications on product management, and my content has been viewed more than 3 million times. And so something that people ask me a lot is, hey, Clement, how can I write like you? How can I create content like you? So really the goal of these behind the scenes streams is to show you exactly that, to actually let you see the real process that I actually go through in terms of coming up with content that resonates with readers and provides value to folks. Really, my overarching mindset when it comes to writing product management content is to treat it like a product itself, right? To really understand who are the people that we're trying to serve, what are their pain points, and then how do we address those pain points in terms of the content that we're writing. So that's really what I'm aiming to do. In terms of the other streams that you might have seen, I also do tackle things like presentations. And so that's kind of what we do here. So for this particular session, one of the things that I'm going to be tackling is the concept of feature product fit. This is something that was popularized by Casey Winters. He's the chief product officer at Eventbrite. And really what feature product fit is it's this concept of your features need to actually fit your broader product portfolio. Many times when you build a feature that doesn't fit with the rest of your product, the features metrics might move really nicely, but then kind of the product overall suffers. And so that's something I really want to tackle for basically entry-level product managers to like mid-level/senior product managers is really what I'm aiming at here, because I think it's a phenomenon that people don't necessarily know about early on in their careers. And might even trip into kind of as they continue to rise the ranks. And so that's really something that I want to address. In terms of how we came up with this topic, I do have a Patreon, and that's where patrons can vote on topics that they would like me to cover. And then those topics, when I do cover them, they go up on the Product Teacher blog as well as through our newsletter. So with that, that is the introduction. So we'll go ahead and just dive into the actual topic here. So first off, again, something that is incredibly valuable is to say which audience we're trying to go after, right? Because if depending on who we're trying to speak to, we're going to want to change our messaging or to think through the outline differently, right? So really the folks that we're targeting are entry level to PMs to senior PMs. So basically something like, 0 to 7 years on the job. Pain, how to know whether their work is actually helping the broader product or not, right? Solution, provide a framework for assessing and feature product fit. And so this is something that's just incredibly valuable to set up front, because if I'm trying to introduce this to college students, let's say, then I need to have a completely different structure in terms of how we're going to cover this topic, because they're going to know different things. They're going to have different experiences. They're going to expect kind of different kinds of content targeted towards them. And on the flip side, if I were writing this for heads of product, right? I was writing this for directors of product, VPs of product, etc., like product leadership level. I would want to use very different structuring, right? I would want to really focus on what are the processes that they should implement within their teams to make sure that their features across the team are meeting the broader definition of feature product fit, right? And so, this one topic can be targeted to many, many different ways, right? Like we can think of this as, do we want this to be for people managers, right? So again, like product leaders. Do we want this to be for people who are trying to break into product? Do we want this to be for people who are product management practitioners, right, like individual contributors? And that then fundamentally changes the way in which we want to position everything. I just want to clarify something. When you are writing for an audience, or when you're creating content for an audience, right, whether that's going to be a podcast, whether that's a video, you really want to try to aim at one audience and be something to someone rather than trying to be all things to everyone. What do I mean by that? Well, when you try to cover content for too many different kinds of backgrounds, you become very, very unfocused. And then that causes people to not want to engage with your content. On the flip side, when you narrow it down to something that is really targeted, that creates so much value, that focus, that it then actually encourages others to read it, even if they don't fit in your target audience, right? And so many times I see that my content is reshared with product leaders, even though they weren't meant for product leaders, because they say, oh, well, this is really great content that I can use to train the people that I manage, right? Or it gets reshared with college students, right? People who are trying to break into product, and they say, oh, well, this is super valuable to know what it is that PMs are actually doing day to day on the job. And so it's so much more important to narrow down your audience, because paradoxically, that'll actually give you a larger audience because you're demonstrating focus, right? So it's so, so important for us to first identify who are we writing for and what is the challenge that they're running into, right? So that's really the goal. Okay, great. So now we know who it is that we're going after. The next thing that we should do is we should start to think about how do we want to structure the content, kind of what are the key things that we want to make sure that we cover for this group, so that way we address their pains and their needs. The thing that I think is really important is that you actually have your structure set at the start, not to lock you in forever, but just so that that way you know that you're moving towards some sort of conclusion that actually makes sense. Many times I see when people are trying to create content, whether they're recording a video of themselves, whether they're on a podcast, whether they're on an interview, whether they are writing something, what can happen is people kind of go into the stream of consciousness where they say whatever it is that's on their mind, and then they just kind of hope that it goes somewhere. And the challenge with that is that it becomes very difficult to follow. Many times there might be particular topics that you wish you covered, but it doesn't really fit into kind of this unstructured flow anymore. Even if you're not using a structure, your lack of structure is itself a structure, right? And so that means that then some topics are going to be very jarring when they show up if you haven't really cleanly transitioned into them. And so it's really important that we first focus on how are we going to structure what it is that we want to go do, kind of what is the logical progression here. And the great thing about thinking about your content in this way is it's almost like wireframing a product, right? Like you're actually testing your own product management skills in terms of, do I know which user flows to put people through, right? Kind of, how do I introduce people to my product, right? How do I convince them that this product is worth using? How do I demonstrate value to them and solve a pain through this product? These are all kind of user onboarding flows, right? And so content is very similar, where you need to, of course, hook people. You need to show them that, hey, there's something worth reading here. And then actually deliver the value to them and drive action to make their lives better. Right? So that's really how I think about it. So now that we've talked about the importance of an outline, right? Like I'm not going to just write stuff out of thin air. Some folks, can be brilliant in terms of doing things on the fly. And sometimes, right, you can actually get some really, really awesome content by writing in a really unstructured way. I've definitely had a couple of articles, a couple of essays where I was super unstructured, just like coming up with it, and I lucked out, and it was actually really, really great. But it's not repeatable. It's not something that we can rely on. Whereas by taking this more measured approach of I'm going to break down the problem, this ensures that you have a repeatable process for creating content. Like the way that I think about it is creating content is like shipping products, right? Like you shouldn't just ship one product and never ship ever again. It's something that you should continue to do over and over again. And each one is just practice for the next one. Right? So that's really how you want to come into the entire content creation mindset.